My name tag was actually only in the center, and I went to sit down, and she was like, I'm sitting here, and I'm like, that makes sense. I'll move. Society when I was in college.
That sounds nerdy and awesome.
It was nerdy. Yeah, farther side.
Hello? Good morning. Is this working? Oh, yes, it is. Good morning. Actually, maybe I'll stand the whole time so that another, no, I'm going to sit. Welcome to our first panel of the 19th Ebertfest. I see some Rhodes Scholars out there, yes? Thank you for coming. Thank you. We love having you. I have to say a word to you this morning. And I was thinking about whether or not I should say that. Whenever I preface something with that statement, Roger usually says, you probably shouldn't say it if you have to say that. But I'm going to tell you this anyway, because this is a discussion that Nate and I had when we were putting this program together. And we'd like to put the program together in a way that it is something for everyone, whether it's entertainment, information, thrills, something to make you laugh, something to make you cry. And this year, because of what's happening in the country and because of the woman's role in society, which I said back in the 70s and didn't think I'd still be saying in 2017, we decided to have a program that films that also address a certain area of women that's usually addressed in a different way, and that's women's sexuality. And we said these films that we chose, one is an Academy Award nominated performance by Isabelle Huppert, who will be with us. The film is not easy to watch. I just want to tell you that, in the beginning especially, because she's attacked, but the way she handles it is the reason we have that film here. There's another film, The Handmaiden, that is sumptuously so beautiful. It is one of the most gorgeous things you will see. Images are very important to me in cinema. The message is also important. If it's a very important message, I'm less concerned with cinematically how it looks on screen, but I love visually beautiful, rich images on screen, and you'll see that in The Handmaiden. You'll also see some perversity and some other things that are just, overall, it's a film that we both love, and that's why it's here. Again, it has something to do with female sexuality. And the third film is Tanya Wexler's film, based on a true story. It is historical, and I think that the way she presented it is, I thought it was sublime, really. And so it's historical. It has something to do with an aspect of women's sexuality when it was thought that women who wanted to do things with their lives or were, getting maybe too aggressive, it felt that women were struggling with hysteria. And we were given lots of pills to control our emotions and to control the way that we viewed society and our families. This is a true, true story. And so a doctor comes up with this invention that you'll see on film. And so we thought, okay, looking at the totality of those particular films, can the Rhodes Scholars handle them? And you know what? We both said, not just me, I have to give Nate his due. He said, yes, they can. So thank you. This morning, I'm very pleased because this is a special panel. And it's a panel of what we call the Ebert Fellows. And I want you to see their names individually because we have only an hour, and so I want to get through our topics, and I'm not going to say their names when you get ready to speak, even though your name tag is there. I want you to say your name for the audience, because as I told them, and as I will tell you, there is really something about saying your name. It has a vibration that is different than any other person's name or than any other word that you hear or that you say. And so it's very important. So this year, this festival in particular, before people speak, not every time, but at least the first time, I want you to say your name for the audience. A little bit about the Ebert Fellows. They are emerging writers, film critics, technologists, engineers, photographers, filmmakers, and they come from different parts of the country. The first ones were in our first class at Sundance because Robert Redford was going to give an award to Roger, and he announced it in 2012 before Roger passed away. And he was going to give the award in 2013, the Vanguard Award at Sundance Institute. And when Roger passed away in April, Robert Redford asked, can we still give the award posthumously? And I said he could. So he gave it in June of 2013 in Los Angeles. But he had a surprise with the award. He announced that he wanted to name a certain segment of the Sundance Institute as the Roger Ebert Fellowship. And so the first year we had 6 Ebert Fellows at Sundance, and I decided, some other festivals asked if they could have some Ebert Fellows. So we established some at Telluride, but they have a big class they're called the University Seminars. I couldn't invite all of them, but maybe they'll come one day. And then Hawaii also asked for Ebert Fellows, so we started the Ebert, help me,
Roger Ebert Young Writers.
Young Writers Program Workshop. And in Chicago, we have the Ebert Fellows with Columbia College. And in Los Angeles, we have the Ebert Fellows with the Film Independent, who give the Independent Spirit Awards. And so the whole purpose in my mission for the Ebert Fellows was to make them, I call them ambassadors of compassion. So they do a lot of things, and it doesn't matter. I don't care about their political affiliation. They can be Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, no political affiliation, atheist, Buddhist, Catholic, whatever religious affiliation, that doesn't matter. To me is what matters inside. What I want them to do as they pursue their careers, whatever careers they decide, they don't even have to be film critics or whatever they do. I just want them to move forward in the world with an idea in their mind that whatever they bring to their art, their business, or their career, to have these 4 principles: empathy, kindness, compassion, and forgiveness. The first year, we didn't establish that. We had only empathy. And then later, I decided, for me, I always thought that empathy is great, but, it's like this biblical saying, deeds without whatever it is. Deeds without words is whatever it is. All it means is you have words, but you also need actions. So that's why I added the kindness, compassion, forgiveness, because those are really active things that you do for another person to either lessen another person's suffering or to to just do something to make life easier for the other person, for your community, for your family, for yourself. So this morning, I want to hear their ideas. It's going to be really quick, but I do have something I want to read first. This is part of something that I gave at a TED Talk, and I'm just going to do it pretty quickly. I said, empathy is the world's most powerful instrument of social progress. Through storytelling, we can put an audience or reader in the place of the so-called other to powerful world-shaping effect. It served us well as a counterbalance to social discourse in politics and in the infinite world of philanthropy. Empathy in storytelling, however, is equally important and perhaps even more important for its ability to motivate us to reshape our world and make social progress. Once we truly know what it is like to be a person of a different race or gender, physical ability, sexual orientation, or economic circumstance, we develop the compassion to act in their interest and in the interest of society. So why is it then that empathy, an essential socially and emotionally empowering skill, is not being taught in our schools, and empathy making not being taught sufficiently to filmmakers, writers, journalists, and technologists? And then I talk about, since the first silent movie, films, and so forth, and I talk about the fact that in 1962, a year before the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, Hollywood released To Kill a Mockingbird, a film based on the controversial book about a white attorney who defended a wrongly accused black man in the Jim Crow South. Through artistic expression, we were able to have dialogue about an important social issue while it was ongoing and unresolved in many corners of our society. It happened again in 1967, a year before Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Hollywood released Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and it's celebrating its 50th year this year. Could this movie have had any influence on the Supreme Court's decision in Loving versus Virginia in 1968 that essentially said it was legal for the races to marry? I think that creative people are some of the most powerful and influential people in the world when it comes to accelerating change. And I think that to do that through things like movies, some are inventing apps or whatever, will help. You know, there's a lot in here that's really good stuff, but it's too long. And maybe I'll put it online at some point. But what I want to do is, Kyle, I'm going to start with you, and we're going to go right down the aisle. And you can either tell this audience what your definition of either empathy, compassion, kindness, or forgiveness is. I'm going to give you several topics so the rest of you think about this, or how the programs encouraged you to think about what you bring to your work, or how it encouraged you, if it has, to treat people differently. You know, there's somebody, Katie Kilkenny, down there, writes for Pacific Standard, and that's a magazine about social justice. And so I know that you think about it at work, but how do you think about it in your personal life if you do? So that may be something different for you. Anyway, let's get started. Thank you. And please first there are only 9 up here because we have 24 Ebert Fellows here. And so the rest are in the audience. And if we have any time, then I want you to speak up. And if we have time for another session during the time of the film festival, we'll do that. But I'm so sorry that I couldn't bring everybody up. Let's start with Kyle Burton.
So I'm Kyle Burton. I suppose to start it off, I would define empathy as we're talking about it here as our capacity to accept others' experiences as lived and consequential. And I think in our context of the arts, we have an essential tool, an essential instrument to kind of strengthen this and expand that capacity in an intimate and special way. We live in a data-driven world more and more. Science and numbers are very important, but they give us details and they give us how something works. They don't give us something why. And I think that's where the arts comes in.
Well said, Kyle.
And can I, one thing, who's keeping time for me this morning? Because we need to leave time for questions. Do I see Daniel Jackson? Daniel, will you be my timekeeper, please? And we need to be out of here by, Nate, what time do we need to stop this panel?
It's 9:16, we're good.
It's 9:16 now. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you give me some signals so we can have the audience participate. Thank you. Okay, Sarah.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Sarah Pelaez.
Someone said, please speak louder as well.
Oh, me. Me speak louder. Is this good? Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Pelaez. I'm an artist filmmaker. And compassion and empathy are concepts that really resonate with me in my work. I think that empathy really starts with vulnerability. And I think that that is something that is not really given cultural significance in America. I think that when you become vulnerable, you're able to kind of allow some connections that you may not be able to even initiate in the first place. Because of that, my work is very documentarian oriented. I work a lot with real people's lives, and something that I've learned in my filmmaking is that to get people to trust you and to open up and to get that content that's gonna make you cry, you in turn have to offer some vulnerability. So I made a documentary once about this young couple in, like, you know, a college sweethearts. And, you know, in order to kind of get this young woman to open up, I in turn opened up to her first. And she gave me the most heartfelt 2 hours of her life. And I think empathy, forgiveness, compassion must be done with strength. I mean, passion is in the word compassion. I think that's a good place to stop.
Hello, can you guys hear me in the back? Perfect. So my name is Jason Yu. I'm a student, and it's a pleasure to meet everyone. So I asked my mom what I should say for empathy. And last night she was like, well, your sister's coming into town, so you better say hi to her first. I was like, okay, for sure. And then she was like, you could give the cake example, or you could share perspective on what you've learned in terms of empathy with regards to the STEM fields and how it relates to the arts. So I had this professor in engineering law. His name is Joe Bayrich. He's a patent attorney, and he gave a pretty concise explanation of, in school, especially in the sciences, everything is pretty binary, right? It's 1s, 0s, yeses, nos. In engineering, like in your physics classes, you either get the correct answer or you don't get the correct answer. And if you don't, well, you don't get the points, right? And in life, it's not like that, you know? Things aren't 100% yes, 100% no. It's probably like 73, 37. As you can see, I love numbers. And so how empathy comes into play is that because things in the real world aren't binary and they're more of like some random distribution. I was gonna say Gaussian distribution, but that's a little bit too nerdy. So yeah, anyways. And so because things aren't binary, empathy is kind of the bridge that connects the arts to the sciences, right? It opens up communication between these two avenues of thinking. And I think that's the role empathy will play out in the future too, with collaboration between us as fellows and us as just people in general. We can build a better overall product when we communicate better with empathy leading the way.
Aloha, good morning. My name is Joshua Lee. I'm from Hawaii. I know, it's a little bit different here. But as a filmmaker in Hawaii, something that's very important to us is telling unique stories that connect people from all around the world. And as filmmakers there and filmmakers around the world, it is our job to take people's different perspectives and their emotions and their experiences and connect them at a universal level. We all go through certain things and different experiences, but at the same time we share many same facets, per se. And connecting those dots is something that we as filmmakers and the next generation can do. I think we're at a pivotal point in our history in America where we have to look at each other and not identify the differences, but identify the similarities. And just as Jason has said just previously, taking people of science and arts and English and so many different backgrounds and connecting those dots is what's going to lead to a stronger tomorrow. And that's what I think everyone on this panel and everyone here today wants to focus on, is how do we drive our future and how do we connect more people around the world?
Good morning, everyone. I'm also from Hawaii, come here, so my time's a little bit off still. I should be asleep right now. But we have a word for, what's that? Oh, yes, my name, Laura Garber, yes. And we have a word for compassion, empathy, kindness in Hawaii, and that's aloha. So, ha meaning breath of life. I think empathy, compassion, kindness, and love is a learned experience. I think that we can learn by example, and definitely being in this fellowship, Roger Ebert's philosophy on all of these things is just inclusion for everyone. And last night in Hair, Jeannie had said a quote, "We're all crazy, let's shake on that." And I thought, thank God, if we can all admit that we are crazy, and just at the end of the day, we can boil it down that we all just want to be loved and find this compassion for people. So I think it's very simple. You just need to learn it.
Hi, my name is Carlos Aguilar. I'm a film journalist, and I'm originally from Mexico City and moved to LA when I was 14. And that Chaz speaks about the otherness, or what we consider the otherness, and how we always look for the things that don't belong or that are not similar to our experiences. And I feel like the moment I realized that was when in the U.S. when films in another language are called foreign language films because they have subtitles. And for me, every American film was a foreign language film with subtitles, or growing up in Mexico, and that's how everyone all over the world sees films from the United States that doesn't speak English. So to see that we can see films from other countries, and rather than call them foreign, I think international is a better term. Seeing films from other countries and experiencing those lives from the perspective of the filmmaker, and seeing a woman in Tehran, Iran, going through things that might not be specifically the same, but we can relate. And I feel like those moments when you see someone across the world that has an experience that you can relate to, and you can connect with that despite not speaking the language, I think that's when you realize that cinema in particular has a power to show us that we are closer, more connected than sometimes we realize that we are. So international cinema is something that I find particularly valuable when it comes to empathy, because by seeing films from other countries, whether it's documentary or narrative, you get to see what other people are doing artistically, but also what their lives are like, what struggles they face, and then not only you put yours into perspective, but also see that your suffering might be the same as someone else's, even if the circumstances are different. So I think watching more of those films from other countries and not being afraid of subtitles is something that could really help with being empathetic.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie Kilkenny, and I'm also a film journalist. as Chaz mentioned, I work at Pacific Standard Magazine, which is focused on social justice. And one of the reasons I love writing about movies at a social justice magazine, which some social justice journalists might consider sort of a fluff topic, is that it's like a really accessible way to talk about empathy and to talk about understanding others and being in the other's shoes. You know, my friends and I, when we get together, we might not talk about empathy. We might not just get together to talk about empathy, but every Friday night we go to movies, and then we talk about the way we felt after we were in those seats watching these characters go through incredible things. When I think about empathy at the movies, my most powerful memory is probably from an early age, that moment in Star Wars Episode 4, when Princess Leia watches her planet explode. I remember seeing these reverse shots of Princess Leia's face just totally devastated and thinking, oh my God, like a whole planet exploded and so many people died. And so, you know, to use a modern corollary, Hidden Figures, when you watch that movie, maybe many of us knew, or some of us didn't, that many black women played very important roles in the 60s space race. But when you watch one of those characters run to the bathroom half a mile or a mile away in heels again and again and again in that movie, it suddenly hits you just how difficult the everyday was for those women as they completed these complex equations. So I think movies are super important in terms of making sure that we make a ritual of putting ourselves in other people's shoes and have a really accessible way of talking about that.
Hi, my name is Joseph Longo. I'm a student here, and I'm going to go right off of what Katie said. And when I think of empathy and arts, I think of the stories that we choose to tell and what movies we choose to go see. So, for instance, something like Hidden Figures, it's important for me in an empathetic way to have that movie out there and that I'm able to see that movie and to have such a strong reaction to it. It's important to discuss or to think of the way in which the movies that we choose to distribute. And so for me, I like to look at, I'm majoring in journalism, so I like to focus on, aside from, you know, what gets us to the point that when we see a movie, we have an emotional reaction. So, you know, who do directors cast in movies? What screenwriters are, you know, allowed to produce a script, and what production companies pick up, you know, various distribution deals. And so I'm fascinated by that intersection of where the politics and the social justice can come into the way we produce, you know, the movies that we have such a strong reaction to. Some of my favorite movies are so rich for me because not just for the way, you know, the emotional reaction I had on screen, but the way in which the movie came about. And so for me, it's important to look at how we can better, you know, make our screens more diverse, and the television we see in the movies, how we can make that more reflective of, you know, our society, so that we can all better understand and be more, you know, empathetic for all different people.
Hi everyone, I'm Rob Fowler. I live in Los Angeles. For me, I feel like empathy is if you meet somebody or encounter an experience or an emotion that you don't understand, you choose to broaden your inner world to accommodate that in order to have that, to be able to encompass that. And I feel like that's also why empathy feels like it's in short supply. If empathy was easy, we'd have it infinitely. But it's hard, especially if you have a very defined worldview. The smaller your world and understanding it is, the more defined it feels, the more comfortable it feels. So it can be very difficult to broaden your empathy. And so that's why things like films and just art in general are so crucial, is that under the guise of entertainment, you are being coaxed to broaden that worldview in a way that kind of softens how traumatic it can be. So.
Before, I'm going to go back here. Okay. I could have had another fellow sitting there. One of the things that we this morning, it's called Empathy and Compassion and the Arts, but the one principle I don't want to forget is forgiveness. And I was telling a story about how forgiveness was really driven home to me so strongly about 10 years ago, because before that, I didn't think about forgiveness that much. I knew it was something you were supposed to do. I knew that if you were Catholic, you went to confession so that you could be forgiven, for your sins. And I knew, just things. I didn't think about it that much. Although Roger, when people ask me, what's the one thing that I learned from him that is above all others, they expect for it to be a movie, but it's not. It's forgiveness. He was a person who could forgive so easily and so deeply, and I found that very profound, because that was how my mother was as well. They were similar in that they both kind of embraced people without regard to who they were, and they both were able to forgive. And I thought about that a lot. But the one incident that really, for me, was the most profound is about 10 years ago, when this man with a gun went into an Amish school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and shot and killed 5 children and injured some other children. And that night, before even all of the Amish children, I think before their bodies were even taken off the school floor, the families of the children who were killed went to the wife of the man who killed their children and told her, "We forgive him, and we forgive you, we love you, and we love him." And how could you say that? I just couldn't even wrap my mind around that. That was more, and I always thought that I was a loving person and a person who was relatively forgiving, not like that. But I didn't understand it for a long time. And so I made kind of a study of what forgiveness was about and sort of the history of it and why it was a biblical thing and why it's important. Forgiveness between nations, forgiveness of debt. I was a lawyer, so I studied forgiveness and why debts are even forgiven every 7 years. There's a reason for it. And so the principle of forgiveness became very important to me, and that was brought home again when the Dylan Roof went into that church in South Carolina and shot and killed 9 people during the middle of a prayer ceremony. And the families, not all of them, but just about all 9 of those families, representatives of the people the victims, went and told him that they forgave him. And that, again, it's just so powerful. And I started practicing that thing in my life more often, and it's actually quite magical. Some of you may do it all the time. I did not. And I started actually forgiving the people who I felt the most resentment against. And that is really powerful because it takes something off your shoulders that, it's not a church sermon, but it is really powerful, it's really magical. And so I started watching in films cinematic instances of forgiveness and the lessons that they were trying to get across. And sometimes I'm hoping that some of the filmmakers include them in subtle ways and things that you write. But you can write about anything. Just like what Katie said, that one of the strongest empathy moments for her was watching something in Star Wars. So it doesn't matter the genre or the book or the whatever. It can be in anything. But forgiveness is a very important one, too. One other thing about forgiveness, because somebody sent me a follow-up to the 10-year Amish killing. What I didn't know is there was a student who was injured so badly that she had to be tube fed, and she requires around-the-clock care. Excuse me. My allergies are bothering me. The mother of the gunman, the mother of the man who injured her, goes over to that girl's house. She bathes her, she combs her hair, she takes care of her. And those families have that kind of relationship they have actually forgiven. And things like that just slay me. I can't even, I say this is why I was put on earth. My experience as a human being is something like that. Now we have to move on because it really means so much to me. But what I want to do is have Walker or some of the other Ebert Fellows who haven't had a chance to speak on stage come up to the microphone, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So just whatever you have to say about any of the Ebert Fellows who would like to come up and speak. Walker, I would like for you to start, though.
That's what I get for sitting in the aisle. I'm Walker King. I'm a 2017 Sundance Fellow. In college I kind of briefly studied literature before getting into film, and I had a professor who kind of studied the origins of novels, like the early form. And empathy was a big part of, it was really influential, what his classes that I took from him. Because there's all about kind of how the novel and a lot of the forms of art we think about today are really kind of formed out of this idea of not exemplary figures, not like mythic heroes, but people who are like us, that we have a sense of, we can more easily empathize with and understand their struggles, and they have interior lives that we can feel for in a way that is, kind of new in the sense of kind of human art. And so that's one of the things that I think is you can see that in literature, and I think you can see that sometimes more strongly in films because of the way that works. And I wish I'd planned this out better, but that's what I think.
All right, thank you. One of the other things that I do with Ebert Fellows is you have to start getting used to extemporaneous speaking, because I will call on you anytime. Jordan? And while Jordan is coming up, maybe Mariah? And who else do I see? You can just... Kristen?
I think empathy is kind of like, I'm Jordan Siggy from Hawaii. I think empathy is pretty much necessary for like storytelling and filmmaking, because you got to connect with the main character. Like, one of my favorite shows is called Community, and there's this one scene where they talk about like we could connect. Like I could tell you like this pencil's name is Tom, and I could break it, and a little piece of you dies, and he's like, we can connect with like sharks. Like sharks don't even watch Shark Week, but we do every week. It's like we connect with anything. It's pretty insane. Like went through college, and then you gotta like clean your room, and then like kind of like feel bad. You gotta put away your toys and stuff, all your old stuff. But watching Toy Story, you gotta like feel bad, like like this might be Woody or something. Like it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know how to end this.
Okay. You know what, that's fine. And Mariah, Kristen, and then we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. But no, Mariah, you can come up and stand right behind her.
We're forming a line, so.
Yep.
Aloha, my name is Kristen Rivera. I'm from Hawaii.
Aloha.
Aloha.
And I'm primarily a writer. I do a lot of writing for a local organization called Art and Flea. We promote a lot of our local artists and designers and give them a platform to showcase their work and their art. And since we're talking about empathy in the arts, something I do on the side is dancing. I've tried, no demos today. But I primarily dance hip hop, and since we're talking about empathy, being a dancer, it's comprised of all of those components that we've been speaking about, you know, forgiveness, compassion, empathy, and it's really important because as a dancer, you try to show all of these different characters to other people on a stage, and you want them to relate to what you're doing. And you're not speaking, you're not singing, it's through your bodily movements. And just as an observer myself, watching other people dance, it's amazing the influence and the impact it can have on you and your entire being. You don't even have to know a person's background and their story, but you can see it when they move. You can see it in their dancing, and it's all there. The feeling, the honesty, and especially the pain. And I think that empathy can be a lot more understood through pain. Like, I'm not saying you have to go through more pain than another person to understand better what someone else is going through, but it goes back to what Sarah was saying earlier about vulnerability, and that's really important because if you don't open up yourself to others, how can you expect them to reciprocate that same vulnerability back? And that's how we can make connections in this world. Like, dancers are essentially storytellers, and we do whatever we can to just spread the good news and spread what we love doing, and hopefully people will see that and it'll just hit them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Schaefer, but you can call me Mariah. I'm originally from Brazil, and I've been living in the United States for a decade now. And I feel that empathy starts with your willingness to look at and analyze your society, the society you live in, and the society in other countries, because then you can really see like what values people place in certain lived experiences, and really be able to see their lives and see how they live and how they react to situations emotionally, and get a better understanding of what's going on in their minds, and really realize how every experience is valid. Everything that someone might go through some difficult things, but it's always like you have to be understanding of everyone. And I feel like a film example would be like a Brazilian film that was released a few years ago. It's in English, the title is The Second Mother. And that film really related to me in the way that, like, what I was talking about earlier with being able to analyze the society you live in. It's a film about a woman who leaves her daughter in the northern part of Brazil to work in São Paulo at a woman's house. And in Brazil, it's really common to have women cleaning your house and stuff. And it's sort of like a societal dynamic that you don't really question. But the film was all about her experience and her hardships and her humanity. And I feel like that film really struck me because of the power of cinema in terms of validating experiences that we don't think about. And to me, that's where empathy comes from. It comes from being open to all experiences. And that was really long, and I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Andrews. Sorry, Chaz didn't ask me to speak, but I just wanted to
No, I
share
did
something.
ask you to speak.
Oh,
I
okay.
invited you.
I'm also from Hawaii, and I wanted to just kind of say something sort of in line with what Maria just had to say and what Robert was saying earlier, but especially what I think Jason was saying. I'm also in the STEM fields, and what he was saying about how in those fields we're really used to there's a right answer, there's a wrong answer sort of a thing. I remember when I was taking an English course, one of my professors said of literature and about of our own writing that was really kind of, I don't know, changed my dynamic, changed my worldviews. He said that it's not about writing something that gives an answer or that says something. He says it's not even about writing something that asks a question. It's about writing something that makes the reader ask something of themselves. And that's the real goal. And I think that films and storytelling are really important in that way, in that where the empathy comes from is when you watch something or when you read something that it makes you stop and, as Maria said, like think about something you don't normally think about, that you stop and you think to yourself like, well, how does this make me feel? Or how can I relate to this? And it's those new thoughts and that encompassing of more material from the outside world into your personal world, yourself, that I think is the really important thing of storytelling and how empathy is really cultivated in that way.
Thank you. So these are some of the young people who are going to be helping to shape our world one day, who are actually helping to shape our world today. And I just thought that it was important to have some of the things that we have in the Ebert Fellowship programs to introduce them to some of the thoughts, but introduce you to them and them to you. And I hope that during the course of the festival that you seek some of them out and talk to them, and that some of the Ebert Fellows seek out some of our guests and talk to them too, and not just to each other. Yeah, somebody say, yeah, great. And right now, I want to open up the floor. So come to the microphone, please.
So I grew up in a generation where our theme song was, "Hope I Die Before I Get Old." Am I right? Yeah.
And you know what? I'm going to have the rule on you, too. Please tell us your names.
Oh, okay. My name is Karen Christensen, and I'm laughing because I'm old now. And don't take away our Medicare. My question of you all is generational. Many of us that are in the room that are older, our experience with movies is to go to a theater and to watch them in community with other folks. And what frightens me about your generation, and I have kids in their late 30s, is their experiences are so solitary in terms of art and movies, films, which I love films. I'm also a huge fan of animation and love to go to see animation films, and oftentimes find myself in a room full of really young people, and there aren't many people my age who see the value of those films. So what are you guys going to do to help connect the generations?
Can I start?
Good. Oh, Carlos, okay, go ahead. Good question.
Since you talked about animation, I'm going to share. This is a film, short from a film called My Life as a Zucchini. It was nominated for an Oscar this year, and I think that's a great way to, animation is often think of as this medium that is only for children, and that's a complete, that's a mistake. There's animation is not a genre, it's a medium. It could be a drama that's animated. And My Life as a Zucchini is a film about this group, as a home for children that are orphans. And the filmmaker tackles very tough subjects with the children through stop motion animation. And it's a film that really is about pain and empathy. And one of the children, his mother, Zucchini, his mother dies, and he's thrown into this group of children. It's about the dynamic of finding all the people that have gone through different things that are also, traumas in their lives. And it's all done, it's softened by the fact that it's animated, but it's also very sophisticated and is understood by children and enjoyed by adults. So I think that films like that, I could find, not only animation as a medium for gags and comedy, but, something that has more meaning and depth, and that could bring that gap closer, but also the fact that, as you mentioned, solitary viewing it's a problem. I think that theatrical, experience of film in a theater really adds something, just by listening to the laughs or the cries or the reactions of other people. And, you also get to see that we all react to some of the same things rather than just on your computer and through Netflix and not knowing what everyone else is thinking of this film. So, so if you haven't seen My Life as a Zucchini, I think that's a great film to seek out and see that animation could be more profound than some people think.
Thank you. You have something about connecting the generations?
Right. So I think it's interesting that you discuss how our generation is very computer-based. We focus a lot on just watching it in our rooms or however you say. At the same rate, though, if you compare it to like YouTube or Twitch, for example, it brings communities together. So while we're not going to a communal theater in our one little town, we're looking at millions of people that are watching the same thing from all over the world. So in our generation, I would say we share a very much global collective understanding of what's going on. It's like when I hop onto Facebook first thing in the morning, the first thing I see is the news of what's happening in Syria or happening in North Korea. I probably wouldn't have gotten those news if I was just sitting on the TV. You know what I mean? It would be much more local. So having a global perspective and understanding where everyone else is coming from, I think is going to enhance where we go in the future. So just because we're sitting in our rooms watching it on a small computer screen doesn't take away from how we can learn to be together at a greater level, I would say.
Joshua, that's actually a very good point and one that I hadn't thought of but I do think that it's an excellent point because you take more of a global view of things and community still means something to you. It's just that you define community a little differently than our generation defined community.
Yes.
The thing that is important, and one of the reasons that I'm bringing you all together, is person-to-person, the human touch is still so important to me. And one of the things that I'm thinking as I'm sitting here, the next time I bring a group of Ebert Fellows together, I want to specifically have maybe a workshop, not just a one-hour panel, where we interact with people from the Rhodes Scholars or from somewhere, so we can compare generations together, but around a specific thing. We'll have to brainstorm about that and have either a specific topic or a specific event or activity so that we get generations together. But I like that idea. But excellent point.
Hi, my name is Eric Pearson. I'm a professor at the University of San Diego. And what I'm excited about is one, having you here. But I have a question which is somewhat generational, but it's also a teaching question. Because 2 years ago, my university instituted this, we have to teach our students empathy. And my initial response was, that's your mama's job. And so it really, because I see empathy as sort of a train you're already on, and there's stops along the way, but if you didn't get on the train to begin with, it was like, well, we need to get them on this experience now. So we've been talking about empathy, but I'm curious as to when you hear the term teaching empathy, what does that mean to you? And do you have films that are resonate with people with your generation so that I can use those films to sort of help me in my own teaching?
Kyle?
Yeah, so I don't have films off the top of my head particularly. I'll leave that to any of the other guys that want to answer. But University of San Diego State and Michigan just did a couple studies a year ago that kind of go together. One, Michigan is that over the course of the last 40 years, students feel less empathetic. We are actually down about 75% in self-reported empathic feeling. And the San Diego State University study suggested that narcissism likewise was going up over the same period of time. Couple that with our state of technology and our state of self-curation and the way that we engage with all these international communities, and I think we have a danger of people just expanding their bubble but making it the same thing. Instead of going from 20 people that they see every day or a small community of 3,000, they're going to 50,000, 100,000, these huge international communities, but it's the same sort of viewpoints that they have. I think the way to teach around that is to adjust and adapt for motivation. There's also been equal amounts of research done that that you can adjust someone's capacity to feel empathy and to expand their points of view when you give them a motivation to do it, whether it's as crude as, and this was part of the study, as crude as telling men that women find sensitive men more attractive, versus just telling men to be more sensitive, and they report different responses from those groups of men. When you have students in the classroom, when you have them focused and talking about the same things, I think that's fertile ground for that sort of motivation realignment. But for specific movies, maybe someone else.
That's great. I think Joe had a...
Yeah, just going off of that, when I think of, and kind of the same thing you were talking about, just like Netflix and the ability to have a lot of these programs offers a good opportunity to see diverse films. So for me, the thing that comes to mind is on Netflix, I saw Paris is Burning, which is the, it's like I want to say it's 80s, but I could be wrong on that. But it's a documentary about like the drag ball scene in like the 70s. And so for me, that was a film that is something that, opened your mind to a culture that maybe you're not particularly involved in, but you can be empathetic for. And I think on a more today's race or today's society too, something like RuPaul's Drag Race or some, not even just these some of these TV shows or even reality shows or a lot of these programs, and the ability to have it at a wide release offers people of different ages and generations from different no matter where you live to have access to quality programs that are entertaining and also a chance for you to learn.
Okay, well, this is what I want to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. I want you to all go up to the microphone, state your question, and then let the other person go up before we answer. And then we will give, some of you may have some of the similar, but we're almost at the end, so I want you all to get a chance to at least say something into the microphone and let the person do it, and then we'll answer it.
My name is Elizabeth Crone, and for 25 years I taught graduate students in the counseling department to counsel marriage and family. And I didn't realize how revolutionary it was that I assigned films, many, many, many films. I was teaching a very Midwest folks who'd never even been out of their state. So I think it's very difficult to teach empathy. I'd be glad to give this gentleman a list of films. And my question is, how, using this medium of film, do we get people to watch a bigger variety and not just the genre that they like? How do you get people to do that?
Okay, thank you. Next. Bring them to Ebertfest.
I've got a couple thoughts. My name's Jeff Canfield, and I'm an alumnus from U of I. YouTube and Netflix, they give opportunity for independent films and, small makers to get their works out. And some movies that I've seen that are, I think, about empathy. There's this series called Sense8 on Netflix, where people are literally, their brains are somehow connected to other people around the world so they can share experiences. Another series that's sort of about empathy is this 13 Reasons Why. It shows, how 13 different people affected the life of this one young girl. And it would be interesting to see more movies like that, and I think Netflix with the series format lets you develop characters and do more movies like that. And even there was a movie a long time ago called He Said, She Said, where, it was like two movies, and they were showing the same events, but from the different characters' points of view, and it was amazing how different the two points of view were. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
My name is, excuse me, Marianne Brandt, and I'm from Michigan. And for me, it's body, mind, and spirit. My body was born in Germany, my mind got developed in the United States, and my spirit in China. I worked in China, and I've worked in different countries. And lately, what I've run into, I have with a lot of students that, some of them studying here, that studied in the United States. I worked in one of the top high schools in China. And the concept of gay, the Chinese parents putting so much pressure on their children to get married and to have children. And just yesterday, I got another email from one of my students who is in love with this other Chinese girl, but it's like a tomboy. You know, what do we think tomboys in China? Okay, so my question is, you know, how do you combine the East and West? And last week, or a couple of weeks ago, I went to Colorado and visited Naropa University. It's a university where they combine the Eastern and the Western teaching with Eastern philosophy. And my student wanted to go there, so we went there and sat in on classes. Where you're in class, you know, everybody meditates and the dancing. When you're talking about dancing, we went to a dancing class, basically people expressing themselves. So what can you do in a way in films to also express the combination of different cultures combining? And I'm an intercultural consultant, so I work with people that go in foreign countries and come from foreign countries here. You know, when you're, I realized when I worked in China how strong the German values still were, because they clashed a lot. I loved the people because they brought out the kindness, gentleness, just exactly what you were talking about here in me. You know, and how do we get that across to all of us in a movie form, like you all have influence on that, on YouTube probably, any of those.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Christine Cahill, and I'm a teacher, librarian here in town, and I'm just here to defend teachers. As a librarian, one of my best parts of my job is teaching empathy through stories. You do it through film, I do it through books, and I agree with Mr. Pearson that it would be nice if it happens at home, but a lot of times it doesn't, and that job falls on me and my colleagues. And I'm honored to try and do that, and I'm grateful for stories, whether they're film or books, that help me bring those values to children, help them put themselves in another person's shoes, because that's how we learn empathy.
Thank you. I love librarians.
Thank you.
And last?
Yes, I'm Peter. I'm a giant dork, and I want anyone and everyone to talk to me about movies. And in reference to empathy, I just want to throw one out there. I watch everything, you know, horror movies, giallo, French musicals, Japanese samurai dramas. The most destroyed I think I ever felt watching a movie, it was a movie from 5 years ago, but this is all about empathy, is that Amour by Michael Haneke.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Which, yeah, exactly. What do you say about that? What do you say about that movie? How do you not feel like you just want to cry more than you've ever, at any movie you've ever seen? So I would just like to say that that's one of the ones for Miss Huppert. A lot of her work is sadly not available in the US, but Amour is one that's commercially released, and it's available for streaming on Starz Prime, and it's available on Blu-ray.
That was so beautiful. Thank you for bringing it.
Everyone should watch that Amour from Michael Haneke.
Thank you. And time up, that's our sign. I thank you. I thank all of our panelists. I thank all of our Ebert Fellows in the audience. I thank the Rhodes Scholars, and I thank all of you for coming this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.